Okay. Uh Man, why do us Suns fans do this to ourselves? At this point, we know the ship is going down. Uh, uh I'm curious if there's any Suns fans that like are actually hopeful about the rest of the season. Um, because there's not much. There's definitely not much, and they continue to give us really nothing to be hyped for. Uh, so I'm curious if there's any remaining Suns fans out there that are hyped about the Suns' future. It's very bland, and games like tonight definitely don't help that mixture. A very frustrating night. But I guess we'll talk about it more in just a second. Hold on, I'm getting everything set up yet. Set up still. Okay, let's begin. Uh, One last check through of all my stuff. Cool, cool, cool. What up, Suns fans? Suns lose their third straight. Let me double check on that. Their second straight. My bad. Suns lose their second straight. This time to the Memphis Grizzlies. Final score: an agonizing 119 to the Phoenix Suns 112. There has been a lot of interesting stuff. Yes, the season has is still technically over at this point. There's not much to be hyped about the Suns' future at this point in time. But that doesn't make every game not interesting, as I still think there's a lot of changes and a lot of questionable choices, I would say, about tonight's game. All right, so I'll see you in just a second.
Kevin Durant delivers. Gorgeous move for Bradley Beal.
Personally, I feel like that brother needed help.
Devin Booker with the clutch three.
Okay, Suns lose by 7 to the Memphis Grizzlies in their second matchup of the season. Of their regular season series matchup. We meet these guys 4 times during the season, and currently Memphis leads 2 of those 4 games that we play. This game was an interesting one. Uh, I, I mean, just being a Suns fans, initial impressions of going into this game, not that hyped. The Suns are already in a very bad spot, both in the West as a team, and they have a lot of questions that most of us Suns fans can't wait until they get answered. But nonetheless, we continue, and this Suns team continues to try to find answers within itself. And one of those major points that I want to bring up today is this. This is tonight's starting five. Immediate change. It's a little hard to see. The camera's not focusing much on it. Will you focus? There you go. All right. So if you did not see that, it said that Bull was in tonight's starting lineup. Honestly, what if there's one thing this if Bud does right, it's I'm glad that he's rewarding players for their efforts. Bull has had some great last couple of games, especially against the Nuggets and the Utah Jazz, putting up double figure numbers in both of those games and also getting a bunch of rebounds during those games. We all know Bull. If you watched last season's the last Sun season, you got to see a little preview of Bull. And going into the season, expectations were higher for our dear Double 11. I guess Double One, I should say. Um, so Bobo getting the starting position is pretty bizarre, and it's really funny. But logistically, when you look at it, it makes a lot of sense. The Grizzlies are a really tall team. The Suns, by contrast, are also a really short team. So it makes sense to put up some of your most tallest players on the roster in your starting lineup. So Bobo is 7 foot, right? I don't know the exact numbers on him, but he's is in the 7 foot category. KD is also 7 foot? Question mark. I guess that's the one big thing that's been questioning about him. And Nick Richards is 7 foot. So that is 3 7 foot guys managing our front court. So it made defensive sense. And it very early on we got to see Bol freaking ball out. If there's one takeaway we could take from tonight is that Bol is probably back. I say probably because I don't want to get my hopes up for this franchise. Too many times have I been disappointed as a Suns fan, but hopefully Bol gets to continue having a good stretch of games, as this is his third game that he's had a really good stretch. In the game against the Nuggets, he scored 19, his season high mm, for the season. He didn't top that tonight as he scored 18 out there, but he did get 14 rebounds, achieving the double. I don't make these stuff up, people. Uh, Along with 4 blocks, 2 steals, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, and 2 fouls. We could neglect to look over those, as Bol is he's amazing. It's really an interesting combination. I dragged on him early on in the season on why we didn't play Bol much, because I chalked it up to mostly his defensive questionable. But he's been simply just turning the tables on that narrative. He played a great game out there. He looked solid defensively. Never was a problem on defense sometimes. I'll get more into that later, as it's more of a team issue. I wouldn't necessarily put it on Bol, but I mean, I guess he contributes to it. Uh, I just what's there not to like about Bobo? The guy's 7 foot. He wears the number 11. He broke out the headband tonight instead of his pigtails that he's been rocking the last 2 games. Um, it's just solid production. He just like literally, I marked this down because I was so surprised. 2 minutes into this game, Bobo already had a block. He had 3 points, a rebound, assist, and a turnover. If that is not production, I don't know what is. And he is basically beating up Bud metaphorically here for not giving him minutes sooner on. And honestly, I would say, yeah, you're right. Why haven't we been playing Bol more? But I mean, I wasn't also on that train, so I can't really say that. But I'm glad the Bola coaster is back here in Phoenix. He played 30 minutes, a little bit of a stretch. That's the one thing I do find a negative about Bol is his endurance. He's doing so much out there, and I've noticed that his production really starts to fall off when he like starts playing 20 plus minutes out there. So he played 30 minutes out there. Um, Filled the stat sheet up, but you could see that drop off in production happen because he was 3 of 10 from the 3 point line tonight. He had a lot of good open looks, some fast break ones. So yeah, it's I don't think Bol should be playing 30 minutes. Uh, I mean, he did pretty well as a starter. Should he be a starter continuing for the Phoenix Suns? I didn't think I'd find myself answering this question tonight. But heck, man, if he keeps g- getting this good of minutes, why not, man? Why not? Just don't play him for 30 minutes, though. He has a cap, all right? You don't want to tire out the Bowl. You want to savor your Bowl minutes, okay? But still, a heck of a night from Bol, especially for his first um, starting spot of the season. This is the first time he started this season, and I think ever question mark. I'm not too sure about that. So that was the biggest story of tonight. A very big change into how the usual lineup goes, and this could get extended into another talk here with Ryan Dunn, who once again is getting less and less minutes. He only played 5 minutes tonight. He was the usual starter for the Phoenix Suns, and replaced Bradley Bill when we switched our bench early later in earlier in the season. But now we're starting to see Ryan Dunn not getting that much minutes. And 5 minutes is actually pretty crazy. I didn't realize he didn't have that much minutes out there, but that's pretty much a shame to see him just fade out of the lineup for I don't know what. I'm still chalking it up to a rookie wall that he's just hit a this kind of season lull as his defense hasn't been the greatest in recent games. I mean the 5 minutes he was out there, he guarded John Morant and he picked up a personal foul. Um, so yeah, and then plus his offense. I mean, his 3 point percentage was always a bit of a question. He finishes well around the rim, but we don't use that too much. And I guess Ryan Dunn just hasn't been getting after it, doing all the dirty work that this Suns team needs to surround our big guys like Book and KD tonight, which allows me to segue to them as KD is probably your second storyline. I mean, if you're talking about national media, KD's your main storyline for tonight, but not on this show. Bol Bol is the center. Bol Bol's the headliner. All right. KD, 34 points, but he only needed 26 of them to cross 3,000 career points. Um, that's a lot of zeros, man. That is a lot of buckets. I This is kind of a weird spot for me because I'm just a Suns fan and I have been a Suns fan for like 2 years now. So I haven't experienced much of the legend of KD. But I do appreciate everything that KD does bring to this team. Awesome achievement. I'm glad to see him just continue to be amazing for the Phoenix Suns. Definitely a strong MVP for this season. Um, not overall league wide. When I say MVP, I mean like for the Phoenix Suns. He's been absolutely crucial for the Suns, and he proved that very much going into the second half, which I think we'll talk about a little later. After I finish up my stuff about the players, but KD 5 blocks out there. Durantula came out there for a moment with 3 rebounds, pretty great night for KD, who had a slow start to this game. That first half, he didn't see uh, much attempts go through. I think it was around the second quarter that he started to get consistent looks at the bucket as he really took over offense there. And later, much into this game, although I don't think we leaned on him hard enough for this team. But we'll get that in just a second. Book had 17 points out there, played 40 minutes, 2 rebounds, 9 assists, only 2 turnovers, and 4 personal fouls. It's definitely rough like nights like this. We all know that long people with long arms can jam up offense, and it really gets to Book as he has trouble dealing with tall and long defenders. So tough night for Book. But I mean, I'm starting to see this thing with a lot of Suns fans that hey, we need Book to step up, right? He needs to be a star for the Phoenix Suns. And I don't really get that point as I still consider Book what he did tonight, even though he didn't fill up the stat sheet quite the same like KD. He was still doing a lot, being the main offense for this team. I mean, he practically takes Tyus Jones. He makes Tyus Jones irrelevant, mostly because he controls the ball. He is the offense. He is the system, you could say. Uh, I mean, he was garnering a lot of attention. It's you really chalk it up to the gravity, people. Like it's just simple science. If Book in the mid range is a deadly weapon, just as much as KD is in the mid range, he can't allow that. And with Grizzly players being like one of the best defenses. They aren't going to allow that happen. They're going to send two defenders towards Book to double team him and to force the ball out of his hands. And then from there, it's a simple math game. It's two defenders on Book that leaves a man open. So it's up to forcing the defense to scramble towards that open man. Um, and then from that point, it's just more on the Suns to try to capitalize on the weakness created there. But even in that short little sample, Book is the offense. All right, he's being deadly out there. Just putting him out there is a positive force to our offense. Um, Although the key thing here is that he needs another guy on with him. It can't just be Devin Booker, as we found that problem later on into the second half, and is a big reason I would contribute to why the Suns lost tonight's game. But before that, one last player I want to talk about, Ty Washington. Really interesting choice. Ty is one of our two-way player contracts, and he's been spending most of his time in the G League balling, as typical 1-2 player guys tend to do. Um, Ended the night with 2 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and played 13 minutes over the likes of guys like Ryan Dunn, who got 5 minutes, Mason Plumlee, who got 7 minutes, which I guess you could you could throw Mason Plumlee aside there. Yeah, that's not really valuable minutes. But Ty Washington, I think, is definitely the most questioning player that they went to during this game. Um, and it is very questionable. We've leaned on Ty a lot during this second half as he became quite a menace. But here's the weird part. Okay, so I firmly believe the reason why Bud made the choice to sub in Ty Washington was purely to guard John Morant. I had to look this up during the course of the game, but if you look at the heights of these guys, John Morant is 6'2", Ty is 6'3", bigger. Not only is he taller than John Morant, according to ESPN, he's a little more heavier, but also more importantly, he was able to keep up with John Morant. Ja is very speedy, as we all know, is very crafty, getting around screens and such. So Ty was also a fast guy. He's also very young. He's younger than John Morant, so he's able to keep up with John Morant for most of the game, and he did contribute as much as of a weird night question mark that Ty Washington had. Ty had. He did contribute to the Suns almost coming back into this one, as now we're going to talk about it. That fourth quarter. This is where I believe the Suns lost it. Okay, so that fourth quarter was going great. Surprisingly, this second half was actually working a lot better. We won a third quarter. The Suns beat the Memphis in the third quarter, 31-27. At that moment, the only quarter that the Suns were able to win. They lost the second and the first. So that third quarter was the first time they're able to punch back at Memphis during the whole course of the game. So going into the fourth, they're looking to build on that, right? So you put Ty in the game along with Grayson, who has been obviously just a great guy who's willing to do all the hustle work, all the dirty work, especially when during this close game. I honestly firmly believe that the Grizzlies, they just overworked themselves too much during that half, as during the second half, they did look a little more exhausted. Their defense wasn't as aggressive. They were fouling a lot more. They were turning over the ball a lot more, importantly. And that's what allowed the Suns to be able to squeak into that lead. As just a quick stats for you, Memphis Grizzlies did have 13 turnovers. The Suns only had 12 turnovers. The Memphis Grizzlies did have more rebounds, but they were getting sloppy. is the key detail to that in the second half. And that fourth quarter, going into that fourth, we needed to build on that. And surprisingly, this lineup of Ty Ty Washington, which we already mentioned, for the defense of John Morant, Grayson, who's just a general good shooter and great hustler, Royce, who I mean, he's got size and he's been playing great defense. Yeah, he's a very streaky shooter as well. I mean, Royce had just as a bad of night shooting from three. That bowl, also 3 of 10. Um, KD, who is your offense, he was swishing a lot of clutch buckets near the end or in that fourth quarter, getting everybody just absolutely taking over the game in that fourth quarter. Most importantly, um, and then Nick, who was there. I guess he just played defense. I really don't know what Nick was doing this whole game. He only had 4 rebounds. Pretty bad night from Nick. But other than that, somehow that lineup was able to make this a 4-point game. So that forced Grizzlies to call timeout. And then bing, right? It's over. You got the game back into 4 points. This is where you lay it on. You put in your best players and you go all out. Our starting lineup was actually pretty decent, with Bol and Book as they were sitting out. So just sub those guys in and you've got yourself a lead. But that is not Phoenix Suns basketball, is the important detail to that. As this is the very crucial point in the game that really cost us the whole game. As Bud, coming out of the timeout, didn't sub anyone new except took out KD, your clutch shooter, and was the only one that was really getting buckets during the whole stretch of that fourth quarter that brought this game back into 4 points. What? Not only did he replace him, rest KD, he replaced him with Book, which this comes back to my point. Book is very passive. He is the offense. He doesn't look to score much because the Grizzlies defense was forcing most of Devin Booker shots. They were guarding his spots, not allowing him to get to his spots. They're double teaming him. There's no way Book's shooting over that. All right. So he's just going to pass it. So Book has already been passive. And it's just, that's where it falls apart. All right. That substitution, that lineup out there really cost the Suns, as not only was it just that, but like Booker wasn't even in control of the offense. He didn't even have the ball as Ty Ty became the point guard all of a sudden. And it was a mess of minutes of Ty Ty. I mean, he's pretty speedy, so he's able to get downhill. But like the Grizzlies would just play man to man, holding down their assignment, their guy, and the Suns wouldn't move at all, waiting for Ty Ty to do something. Who's the point guard? He's not going to pass it. Nick Richards is trailing behind, and he's like, there's nothing to do in this situation. The offense just completely crumbled. It's such a questionable lineup. And it was that offense, not only that offense, but also taking out KD's length and tallness during that fourth quarter also just allowed the Grizzlies to get back into it as they went on a run and had to force the Suns a timeout again because the lead had ballooned back to 11. That right there is your issue. Subbing out KD for Book. It's just not having an offense in place, as I really don't know what they were doing out there on offense. That lineup change literally costed them the game. That 10-point swing, as I assure you, I know it as a fact. If we just kept KD in and like subbed in Book for I don't know, Grayson, and then kept KD in, we would have had the lead. It's definitely a screw up big on Coach Bud. I firmly put this on Coach Bud. It is definitely one of the first coaching mistakes that I've seen him take, along with his questionable challenges. I could go on and on about his questionable challenges that he's been having all season. Um, and yeah, that's how you end this game. We drop another would have win game against the Grizzlies. Uh, I don't know if you guys remember the last time we played the Grizzlies, which was on New Year's Day. That day was embarrassing because the Memphis injuries. They were like missing half of their roster, and we lost by 5 with Book and KD. And now flash forward to today. We almost could get a good win. This would have been a good win against the second seed in the West. But the Suns stopped themselves. They trip over their own foot, is basically what happened tonight. We get one more chance. We get 2 more chances at the Grizzlies. Um, both in Memphis, one later this month in February after the All-Star break, and one in March. So that closes out tonight's game. Frustrating, and it's just more of the same as being a Phoenix Suns fans. I guess I'm just a masochist at this point and just hate fun. Uh, what's new being a Suns fan, you know? So now we look at the bigger scale of the Phoenix Suns and the future. As with the second loss in a row, the Phoenix Suns now drop to 26 and 27 on the season, and they fall out of the elimination, or they fall out of the play-in category. So we are now the 11th seed and fall into elimination. And the Suns still have the hardest remaining schedule, so that's fun. And we'll see more of that hard schedule tomorrow, as this is also another back-to-back. The Suns had a back-to-back with Utah and Denver, and we're having back-to-back again with Memphis, and tomorrow's matchup again at Houston. So the boys have to travel overnight to Houston after KD and Book both played 40 minutes against a really hustle-heavy Grizzlies team against the 3rd seed in the West. I don't know who made the schedule, but they really hate the Phoenix Suns. Or actually, not the 3rd seed, as the Rockets have dropped a couple games recently, so they are now the 5th seed in the West. Still doesn't make the matchup any better. So we'll see you all here tomorrow against Houston as February 12th at 6:30 p.m. So that's all for me. Have a great night, everybody, and relish in your bowl highlights, as we got more of them tonight. So take care, everybody, and have a good one.
Kevin Durant.